Mental health issues are not taken seriously in a lot of countries around the world. So what happens when a person with mental health problems is a danger to everyone, including their caretaker? What do you do in a situation like that? It's the horrifying case of Jessica Camilleri, right now on Love and Murder. Welcome everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, the weekly true crime podcast discussing relationships gone terribly wrong, where our motto is, you're either someone's last love or their first murder. I'm your host, Kai, and in today's episode, we're talking about a horrific case that you're going to want to listen to the very end. I mean, I always want you to listen to the very end, but for real, don't turn off this episode till it's done. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder right now while you're listening so you don't miss a case. If you didn't know, you can also subscribe on our Patreon so that you don't have to hear intros like this or commercials. Actually, our last bonus episode over there, we talked about murderers and the last pictures they took of their victims. Also, this episode I'm doing right now, has a bunch of extras that you don't want to miss. And it's all right there in my Patreon waiting for you. Join now and get past and current bonuses. So there's a bunch of stuff in there for you to binge. www.patreon.com/Love and Murder. You can also currently search Love and Murder Premium Feed on Spotify and get the bonuses over there too. The easiest way is just go to the link in the show notes below. In the meantime, though, grab your butts, grab your apple juice, and let's get into some Love and Murder. Jessica Camilleri was born on October 12, 1993 in Australia to Vince and Rita Camilleri, along with one older sister, Christy. Now, I know Australia is a huge place, but that's all I got. I don't know exactly where. If you do, please let me know in the comments below. As I have to tell some people, I am simply a podcaster. I do not know everything. I only get what I get from my research. Thank you so much for understanding. Jessica's family was her safe haven, but it was evident from an early age that her path was going to be different from her sister's. As Professor David Greenberg would later reveal, Jessica entered the world with an intellectual disability that set her apart. With an IQ ranging from 55 to 60, she resided in the bottom 1% of the population, miles away from the average IQ range of 90 to 110. Look, in all honesty though, I don't think anyone knows what a normal IQ is. In researching what it's supposed to be, I found all kinds of numbers like 90 to 100 and 85 to 115 and just so many more ranges. So for the purpose of this case, we'll stick to 90 to 110. Despite this though, Jessica possessed a unique ability to articulate and communicate. Basically something she liked to do a lot. Talk. Developmental milestones for Jessica followed a different rhythm. Walking, talking, and coordination seemed to unfold basically in their own time, leaving her a few steps behind her peers. Placed in a remedial class at school, her challenges extended to reading and writing, math, and language, so basically everything in school. This, as you can imagine, came with its own burdens as, kids can be mean. She was the recipient of a lot of teasing, bullying, and harassment from her classmates. Because of this, she developed a disorder full of rage called intermittent explosive disorder, or IED. According to Psychology Today, IED, quote, is an impulse control disorder characterized by a failure to resist one's aggressive impulses, which can lead to frequent explosions. Incidents of verbal aggression in the form of temper tantrums, threats, and triads, or physical attacks on other people and their possessions, causing bodily injury and property damage, end quote. It also said, quote, this is not just normal anger. It is a mental disorder that usually starts at the age of 6 and intensifies in adolescence and early adulthood. End quote. Autism was another piece of the puzzle that Jessica carried with her. Because of her autism, she really didn't understand others' thoughts, feelings, and empathy. So she just didn't understand any of that. Quote, deficits in judgment and awareness of other people's thoughts, feelings, and empathy. End quote. This is something that was written about her. Growing up, her life was marked by a series of challenges in everyday activities that seem simple for you and me, like grocery shopping, taking public transportation, banking, household chores, or even finding a job. Her attempts to navigate this was like you trying to finish a puzzle, but like key pieces of that puzzle was missing, but you still had to finish the puzzle. Nobody cared that these pieces were missing. You still had to figure out how to finish it. So that's kind of what it was like for her. But there's even more to her disorder. Her autism drew her into a world of fixation, leading her towards a fascination with horror movies. This fascination, unchecked and unguided, became a part of her narrative. Hours upon hours she would spend watching the same videos. And this basically became her norm, her comfort zone. Well, in her mind, that was her comfort zone. Quote, she spent hours and hours every day for weeks, months, years, decades looking at the same video. Then, living life with IED made things even more of a struggle. Quote, she explains that when she perceives a person is looking at her strangely or disrespectfully, she had minor reaction, but if they touch her or does something physically, she loses all control. End quote. School witnessed these eruptions as classmates and even teachers became targets of her explosive outbursts. Jessica would often bite other students, and it seemed like it was almost always females. I say almost because one time she bit a student who was a male and wouldn't let go. After this, she was suspended from school. Quote, after leaving school, she was placed in supportive environments where she had explosive outbursts and was asked to leave. She was unable to cope in all of these environments, so she ended up on disability support pension, and eventually, when it came into being, the NDIS. And you already know me, lambs. When I don't know what something is, I look it up. So, according to ndis.gov.au, quote, NDIS provides funding to eligible people with disability to gain more time with family and friends, greater independence, access to new skills, jobs, or volunteering in their community, and an improved quality of life. The NDIS also connects anyone with disabilities to services in their community. End quote. When she was a teenager, her parents separated. Vince, her father, had issues that even though Jessica was terrible to her mother, Rita couldn't discipline her. I mean, why couldn't he try to help? So her mother's chalking everything up to her mental illness, which it sounds like it is. Her father wants her mother to discipline her, which, I mean, there could be a way to do it that's not physical discipline, obviously, and not anything crazy, but time out, taking her favorite stuff, maybe. I don't know, because I've never had to deal with somebody with this kind of mental issue. I don't know if there's a way to discipline them. But my thing is, instead of complaining, why aren't you helping? And then if he did help, he would probably see how hard it is to discipline someone with IED. So, I mean, like I said, not that I've met anyone with it, but I can imagine. Anyway, once Rita was so desperate to get Jessica to behave that she, as her sister Christy later said, quote, paid a medium $2,500 to get the demon out of Jessica, end quote. Now, I know they're Australian. I cannot even remotely even try to do an Australian accent. So just pretend I am, okay? The family tried to keep Jessica home as much as possible and out of harm's way, or harming other people. Now, one thing to note about Jessica, she seemed to target women to hurt, as I said before, but she loved talking to men, finding excitement in these exchanges. Quote, she prefers to talk to men because that excites her. She is not particularly interested in talking to women. If they insult her or become angry or distressed by her calls, she becomes distressed and that kicks into her IED, end quote. Jessica's autistic traits extended to a fixation on numbers and colors. Basically, what she would do is assign colors to numbers, which is a condition known as, give me a second, neurasthenia? Neurasthenia, I think. If I'm wrong, please, as I always say, put it in the comments below and let me know. Now, pause here. I want to address some people who talk about my accent or the fact that I don't know how to pronounce certain things. Look, I never claimed to know everything, and I am not above saying that, hey, I don't know how to do this, because I'm not a narcissist. And as for my accent, you can eat it. I love my accent. Sorry, I had to address that. So like I was saying, if you know how to pronounce that, Neurasthenia, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you. Or go to our website, as some of our listeners have done, to correct me on certain words. I really appreciate that. Thank you for that. You can go to my website. It has the SOS button right there on the homepage. So, for instance, to her, the number 2 was yellow, number 3 was green, and number 5 was purple. So if you were to say to her 2, she would literally see yellow in her mind. Phone numbers intertwined with these colors, and she would dial numbers that she basically invented based on the color code that made her feel good. So if she saw yellow, green, blue, purple, red, she would literally just dial those numbers. And then if someone answered, she would want to have a conversation with that person. One time she called this family about 100 times a day just because she liked their number. Of course, she would try extra hard to get the person to speak to her if it was a man who answered. In early 2018, Jessica's fixation evolved into something more troubling. Calling the number of a meat company in Dalesford, she harassed the staff and turned her attention to the boss, Matthew Layfield. When he wouldn't talk to her, she began trying to speak with all his male staff. And when that didn't work, she called Matthew's sister-in-law and wife and threatened them, saying, quote, "I'll cut your head off with a chainsaw and I'll flush it down the toilet," end quote. Wow, that escalated. Matthew then called Rita, Jessica's mother, and told her what was going on. In the meantime, Jessica was still being Jessica. Her fixation wasn't just towards Matthew. She would go out and be aggressive towards strangers in the street, mainly women. She also tried to fight a female patient in the waiting room when she'd gone to the doctor. She was trying so hard to hurt this woman that she had to be restrained. Because of all this, she'd been banned from stores, banned from doctors' offices, and probably some other places that weren't even reported. Her mother, at her wit's end, as I can't even imagine, took her to the Nepean Hospital in the western part of Sydney, and she was admitted to the psychiatric unit for severe mood disorder. She was administered lithium for bipolar disorder as well as antipsychotic medicines. She was only admitted for 9 days before she was released. Pause here. I have some experience with mental health issues and psych wards. I'm not going to go into it because it's not my business to tell, but I will say mental health laws really do need to be re-examined and changed immediately to better care for and benefit those dealing with it. It ends up affecting the person, the family, and basically anyone in the vicinity of that person, whether stranger or not. Hospitals need to be more accommodating. Insurance needs to be more accommodating. Police need to be trained on what to be on the lookout for, and just so much more. But I definitely know it's easier said than done. I'm not on my, white stallion trying to, white stallion soapbox, whatever, trying to tell people, because I know it's not as easy as, these laws just need, it's so much easier said than done. But I just wish there was a fix for this. Okay, that's enough of Kai's Corner. Let's continue to the case. By late 2018, Jessica had stopped taking her medication, which she'd been put on to suppress her IED. Now, just a note for those who don't know. Mentally ill patients stop taking their medication, and that's usually a symptom of their mental illness. It's just a constant revolving door. By 2019, Jessica had a reasonable amount of therapy because she'd been regularly seeing multiple psychiatrists. Even so, her progress was painstakingly slow and, quote, the gains have been very small because of her mental disorder, end quote. Her autism, IED, and intellectual disability exacerbated each other. And this is why the progress was slow. Her autism led into the IED led into her intellectual disability, and it was just around. On July 20th, 2019, Jessica and Rita were having a bad day, basically. The day before, they were having a great day laughing with each other, being best friends. But on July 20th, they were just having a bad day. Jessica felt that her mother was paying more attention to another family member and not giving her enough attention. Later in the day, she said that her mom embarrassed her in front of just some random guy, when in reality, this man was just walking past them and minding his own business. Like, he probably heard something going on, and you know how you glance to see where the sound is, or if somebody's arguing, you glance, and it's a bunch of strangers. You just keep your thoughts to yourself and you keep going. So that's literally what happened. But Jessica swore that her mom embarrassed her in front of this guy. As the day continued, they visited her sister's house, all while continuing to argue. Well, Jessica was arguing and her mother was trying to calm her down. Quote, a neighbor saw Camilleri yelling and throwing her arms about and swearing and screaming at her mother for, quote, always embarrassing her, end quote. At some point, a doctor was called to the house due to intense stomach pangs that Jessica said she was experiencing. The doctor told her that she was suffering from stomach issues and Rita wanted her to go to the hospital. Jessica strongly declined, and when her mother tried to call an ambulance, Jessica ripped the phone out of her mom's hands. As the evening continued, Jessica wanted her mom to call a psychiatric doctor. However, when the doctor arrived, literally the doctor ran out of the house saying that she was, quote, in fear of her life. Damn. Jessica chased the doctor down the driveway until the doctor jumped in her car and peeled off. After this, Jessica said she was hungry and called the Red Rooster Diner at 9:18 p.m., then again at 9:20 p.m., and then again at 9:21 p.m., until they told her, look, lady, stop calling here. Although Rita had tried to calm Jessica down all day, she saw that this wasn't going to happen. Jessica was escalating. Quote, I've had enough. I'm ringing 000 to get an ambulance here and put you back in care, back into the mental health system. Now, Jessica said, the hell you are, and started fighting her mom. At first, they started wrestling, trying to get her not to make the call. She hit her mother so hard that she fell to the ground. Then she dragged her by her hair to the kitchen and restrained her. At around 11 p.m., 000, which is 911 in the US and I think 999 in the UK, got a call.
Hello, this is Alison from Police Emergency. We just received a call from this number.
Yes, I need you to get the ambulance and the police out here immediately.
To which address?
Please come. I need you. This is our immediate life or death situation.
Which suburb or town is that in?
St. Clair.
Okay,
St. Clair.
St. Clair, and what's the nearest crossroad, please?
What's the nearest one? Listen, can you talk to the neighbour? I'm flustered. Can you just talk to him? Could you? Because my hand's bleeding. Yeah. Thank you. Can you talk to him? Oh, my finger's broken. I can't.
It's all right.
Okay, talk to him.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah.
What's happened?
I don't know. We was just home, but she just come in screaming for help, and when suddenly I opened the door, she said, just help me and call the police or ambulance. And she said to me, she had a fight with her mom, I think.
Okay.
My mum tried to stab me and I killed her, I think.
So did she just say her mum tried to stab her?
I don't know, because of the...
Yes.
Yeah.
With a knife. And in self-defense, I think I killed her. Yes. Can you tell him to come immediately?
Yeah, can you please just come immediately, please?
Okay, so she believes that she may have killed her mother?
Yes.
Yeah, she said like this. Yeah.
Yes.
And where is this at? Is that where you are at the moment?
Sorry, who? Me?
Yeah, so where are you at the moment?
I'm in.
Oh, okay, but she's...
Yeah.
Is she with you at the moment?
Yes.
Yeah, she's in the front yard of my house.
Okay, all right. So how old's her mother?
How old is your mother?
My mum's dead, I think.
But how old is she?
57.
57. So is she not conscious?
Nah.
I stabbed her because she tried to kill me.
Okay, and you didn't check if she was breathing?
No, we can't
Could you
go
come to
there.
the house? There's a kid in there. Could you come with me, please?
No, I can't go. Sorry about that. Nah.
Okay. There's a kid, a 4-year-old kid
Yeah,
on
no.
his own in the house.
And is her mother severely bleeding?
No, because we didn't go to her house because I'm outside of my house because I can't go there.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so do you know what the lady's name is?
And my fingers are broken. My
Yeah,
fingers are broken.
her mother was just his name, her name.
Jessica Camilleri.
Is that your name? Is that the lady's name who called?
Yes, yes. Can I talk to her? Lady, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Your name's
My-
Jessica?
My fingers are broken.
Okay.
Mum has had enough of me because I admit I've been a challenge, and this ongoing thing's been going for months. Anyway, she had enough of me. She grabbed me by the hair and dragged me from my room all the way to the kitchen, and she got a knife and she tried to stab me with it, and I grabbed the knife off her because I thought she was going to stab me, so I stabbed her back. And I was so heated up with anger, I just kept stabbing and stabbing and stabbing her, and I took off her head. Her head is, I ran to my neighbour, not this neighbour, my other neighbour before this one, who's on the other side. He was at work. I told him to call the ambulance and the police immediately. He's going to do so, but no one's at home because everyone in the family is at work now. Okay. So he wasn't much help. He said, all I can do is I'll call the police and the ambulance to my address, and I thought it was going to take a bit of time, so I ran to my other neighbour on the other side. Okay. And I had my mum's head in my hand. I know this sounds insane, but I was taking it for evidence to show the neighbour. In the struggle, in the frustration, I didn't know what I was doing. I cut her head off. I chopped her head off with a knife.
Okay, what type of knife was it?
There was all sorts of knives. There was about 7 knives I was stabbing her with. A few of the knives broke. When that knife broke, I got another one and did the same.
Where's the knives now?
They're all in the kitchen. There's blood everywhere. There's blood everywhere. Yeah.
And you're outside the house?
Yes. The ambulance and the police have rocked up. Do you want to stay on the phone?
No, that's okay. What's your phone number, Jessica?
Look, you're better off. This is my mum's phone number, but my mum's not here anymore, okay? She's gone.
Okay, what's your date of birth?
October 12, 1993. Over here.
All right, I'll let you go speak to the police.
Yeah, hang up, okay?
Okay, bye.
I can't, I'm full of blood.
When police arrived, they found Jessica standing outside of her house wearing a blue dress with flowers on it and drenched in her mother's blood. She pointed and said, quote, "Mom's head is on the concrete over there. Can they sew the head back on?" She just kept repeating that. Then she asked, quote, "Can you bring someone back to life if they don't have a head?" "There's nothing you can do? She's a goner? 'Cause I know doctors can do amazing things. They can't sew her head back on?" The officer said, that's a bit of a stretch. So she continued, quote, "I thought doctors can do surgeries and put the head back on." No? Jessica was arrested and taken to St. Mary's police station for interrogation. Quote, "This is up there with one of the most significant, most horrifying scenes police have had to face," said Detective Inspector Brett McFadden. Police confiscated multiple knives from the house for forensic examination. They also saw that a 4-year-old boy was at the scene. Ooh, Rita had been babysitting her grandson at the time. He had minor visible wounds and was taken to the hospital for examination. However, can you imagine the unseen mental wounds though? Poor kid. At the station, Jessica stated to officers, quote, "I don't know how my sister and my dad is going to be towards me after this." She told officers that she did this in self-defense as her mother had tried to kill her and told her side of the story, which is basically what I told you before. She was charged with murder and didn't post bail. She was held for a mental health assessment. Now, here are some of her quotes she gave during this time. Quote, "I really need medical attention. I told all the officers and told the police at the station. I can't move my fingers properly because of the incident. I'm not fit to come to jail until I get cleaned up. I could not wash myself properly in the shower to get all the blood off because of my fingers." End quote. There's just different statements that she gave, just different things that she said while she was there. Now, we're going to fast forward to her trial. During her trial, she pled not guilty by way of mental illness. I know I usually make fun of these people who plead not guilty, but literally she is unwell, so I'm not going to make fun of her. And this was before Justice Helen Wilson. The court heard testimony from a plethora of people, including neighbors, doctors, the coroner, co-workers, and her other daughter. One of her friends said that on the night that she died, Rita, who was 57 years old at the time, had come to a conclusion that she was going to start living her life for herself rather than living it all for Jessica. Quote, "I had a bad feeling. Rita always texts me. To add to the sadness, Rita was looking after her bedridden, frail mother too. This is just horrific. She was fun, irreverent, and vibrant. She loved music and was very community-minded. She connected with everyone because she was lovely." Psychiatrist Professor Greenberg said that Jessica talked about killing her mother in a, quote, "concrete, matter-of-fact tone without any emotion or emotional remorse," end quote. Here is what she told him and what he read to the jury. Quote, "I wasn't thinking. I was panicky, frustrated, enraged. Mom was slapping me. She grabbed me by the hair. I grabbed Mom. I dragged Mom all the way to the kitchen by the hair. I saw red. I remember pulling the knife. I wanted to scare her at first. Mom got the knife off me and chucked it away. I was so agitated. I lost it. I was stabbing her. I was so angry. I think I had sick thoughts. I remember stabbing my mom. I wouldn't stop. Was getting her everywhere. I was getting the adrenaline going. I got it off horror movies, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Jeepers Creepers, and Saw." What Jessica was saying here is that she, quote, got the idea to cut the head off from the movies and that she thought it might relieve her mother's pain. That's what she was saying about the horror movies. He said that Jessica had multiple psychiatric diagnoses, but even as she had an intellectual disability, she was still very well spoken. Basically, what I told you in the beginning. He said that she was pushy to get what she needed, even though she had autism and low self-esteem. Some people with autism don't engage or hold eye contact, but Jessica was not like this. She did, however, often speak in a type of monologue way. He said she had denied having any psychotic symptoms, so basically no types of hallucinations at all, visible or auditory, and she didn't have any paranoia. When forensic pathologist Dr. Jennifer Pokorny took the stand, she said that her notes told a tale of unbelievable pain. Dr. Pokorny told the court that Rita had sustained, quote, "innumerable, at least 100 stab wounds over her head," end quote, including wounds that passed through the right eye socket and into the brain, and, quote, "innumerable overlapping stab wounds associated with decapitation to the neck," end quote. Rita had died from, quote, "multiple stab wounds with decapitation," end quote, at the C2 vertebrae at the top of her neck. Next, crime scene expert Senior Constable Haley Bennett took the stand. He told the court about the crime scene. Quote, "On the tiled floor was the body of the deceased, head decapitated, 6 knives broken and intact surrounding the deceased. To the right was a human tongue. Further to the right, under the fridge, was a piece of skin I believed to be a human nose. The head had numerous jagged and penetrated wounds exposing the cervical spine. Human eyeballs were on the tiles under the deceased's neck," end quote. He reported that Rita's headless body was on the floor in the kitchen with blood on all the chairs, the cupboards, and the fridge. Her body was, quote, in a prone position on the floor, feet pointing towards an oven range. The legs were straight with the soles of the feet facing upwards, with a clump of dark hair on the right foot. The injuries on the right hand and wrist were defensive wounds. The left arm was bent at the elbow, and the left hand rested on her neck area, end quote. Apart from a superficial stab wound to the groin area, most of the injuries were above the waist. When Senior Constable Bennett got to the severed head, which earlier the court was told that Jessica had dropped on the sidewalk outside between two neighbors' homes, she found, quote, eyes, nose, and tongue removed. Also, lacerations to both earlobes indicated that the, quote, earrings most likely were removed with force. When Senior Constable Bennett went through the living room and one of the bedrooms, she found human tissue, blood-soaked hair, pools of vomit, overlapping blood-soaked footprints, and a Crocodile Dundee figurine with its head detached. Huh? And stop here for a brief edit. I did say Senior Constable Haley Bennett, and then I proceeded to say this was a guy, but it's actually a woman, so I apologize for that. Back to the episode. With the head, it was outside because, as you heard in a 911 call and basically everything that I said, Jessica had stabbed it and then twisted it and ripped it off her mother's body. Oh my God. She then took it with her to show the neighbor. She couldn't find the first neighbor, so she dropped it on the ground on the way to the other neighbor. And these were her words. Basically, they're running back and forth, trying to take it to the neighbor for evidence and everything like that. Now, according to many news reports that I saw, they said she dropped the head because she was more concerned with her cell phone. So there's two reports as to why she had the head and why she dropped it. Detective Sergeant Brett Griffin testified as well. He was on scene that night and was one of the investigators who initially examined the crime scene. He reported to the court that on the sidewalk in front of the neighbor's house is where he found Rita's head. Quote, I saw an area of apparent bloodstaining and human tissue. A short distance away, I saw a human head with numerous injuries, included a severed nose, removed eyes, and numerous groupings of apparent lacerations and incised stab wounds. End quote. Detective Griffin said that a collection of human tissue and blood about 1.2 meters from the head indicated that it was, quote, dropped or placed and then moved to its final position, end quote. Next, the court heard testimony that Jessica had threatened to behead the family and staff of a random man she developed a, quote, huge crush on and, quote, flushed their heads down the toilet, which you heard about this before. Then they heard of the threats to the meat company owner and the hundreds of calls a day she placed to them. They continued to say that all the calls placed to this company, if the call was answered, Jessica would apologize and explain she wasn't in her right mind. But when the person tried to hang up, quote, she would attempt to keep you longer and it would turn ugly. She would threaten, quote, I would stab you and cut your head off with a knife. It will always end that way, no matter who she was talking to. After a couple of months, the owner had a conversation with Rita, who, quote, asked for our forgiveness, saying she was trying to deal with it. The calls then stopped, but 2 weeks later they started again. After this, Rita took Jessica's phone from her. Then, Jessica started targeting people on the meat company's Facebook page. So she got her phone taken from her, so she was like, well, there's the internet, so I'll do it on there. The owner's wife, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and his friends, literally everybody that was attached to the Facebook page. This girl has some time on her hands. But you know what? I shouldn't talk about her because she wasn't in her right mind. The wife got, quote, the same threat of having her head cut off and flushed down the toilet, while the sister-in-law's threat was similar but included a chainsaw. When he called Rita again and said that, quote, this is getting out of hand and something needs to happen, she told him Jessica had seen his picture and had developed a huge crush on him, and that anytime she would hear the owner on the phone, it would send her into a crazy frenzy. Rita also said, quote, I am at my wit's end. I don't know what to do. The court then heard the recording on a police body cam that was recorded at the scene. Jessica said that she had acted in self-defense when her mother, quote, dragged me by my hair and dragged me from my bedroom. In self-defense, I grabbed a knife. Listen, does this happen all the time? Will I be locked up for the rest of my life? My mom's head is on the concrete over there. Can you bring someone back to life if they don't have a head? Can you bring her back to life? Can I ask you, did they find the head? Has she gone? You just can't bring her back? There's nothing you can do? She's a goner? They can't restart her head? Because I know doctors can do amazing things. They can't restart her head? And basically, y'all heard this all before, but I just wanted to let you know what was said in court. The defense counsel, Nathan Steele, instructed the jury to put emotion and sympathy to the side and listen to the case based on the evidence. Quote, due to the effects of her mental conditions, she has an impaired capacity at the time of the events. Finally, the court heard evidence from Christy, Jessica's sister, who said that her sister had been diagnosed with the disorders reported, but she also had dyslexia and ADD, attention deficit disorder, and had been bullied during her time at school. Dude, she has so many mental issues. Wow. That is very unfortunate. She also said that she would never forgive Jessica. She said that Jessica was selfish because she was offered help relentlessly but refused all help from relatives and professionals. Now pause. From experience, I can understand where Christy's coming from, definitely. At the same time, with Jessica, that's actually a symptom of the illness. So it's a double-edged sword. Literally, no puns were intended at all with that statement. Justice Wilson then addressed the court, quote, she must have been in extreme pain and both shocked and terrified by what was being done to her by her own beloved child. It was a crime of extraordinary viciousness and brutality, made all the worse by having been committed in her own home. Justice Wilson said that due to the, quote, extreme nature of Jessica's crimes, a stern sentence is called for. She detailed how Jessica had squeezed and poked her mom's eyeball after removing it and then engaged in, quote, acts of decapitation and cannibalism following the killing. What? What cannibalism? Quote, objectively, the facts were gruesome and brutal and involved a frenzied attack on an innocent victim in her own home. On the other hand, the offense was spontaneous and the result of Camilleri losing control of herself because of her complex psychiatric illness. Her behavior of walking into the street with her mother's head and dropping it, as well as asking emergency services personnel whether they could reattach it, demonstrated that to the extent to which the applicant's conduct was divorced from the real world. End quote. The judge then stated that based on the evidence given by multiple psychiatrists and a psychologist, she found that Jessica had only, quote, a simple understanding of moral wrongfulness because of her intellectual disability and autism spectrum disorder. Jessica was cleared of murder by the jury but found guilty of manslaughter. She was sentenced to a maximum 21 years and 7 months with a non-parole period of 16 years and 2 months. Justice Wilson said that Jessica had indulged in such macabre curiosity when handling her mom's body parts after the beheading that this was one of the, quote, gravest examples of manslaughter she'd seen. Christy told reporters that she did not care what happened to her sister when she was released from prison. Jessica was sent to Australia's harshest women's prison, Silverwater Women's Prison. And that is the case of Jessica Camilleri. Wait, what? You're saying there's more? What? How much more could there be? Okay, lambs. AI Jane just informed me that there's more to this case. So, as I said, Jessica was in the worst women's prison and in the toughest wing, Willett East, which is the mental health unit. Damn, the mental health unit is the toughest wing in the toughest women's prison in Australia? Oof. On September 9th, 2019, 7 weeks after she murdered her mother, Jessica attacked an inmate because, well, she was upset. She threw a cup of tea on the inmate because they had a disagreement over trading food. She was charged with fighting, but no penalties happened. On October 14th, 2019, she attacked another inmate and was given 5 days in her cell. On November 3rd, 2019, she refused to listen to directions given to her. On July 31st, 2020, she damaged prison property and was charged with a $200 fine. On November 21st, 2020, she assaulted another inmate and received 7 days in her cell. On January 2021, she was convicted of common assault with no penalty given. On March 24th, 2021, Jessica filed a notion of intention to appeal her sentence, and the court said no. On April 15th, 2021, she got agitated during lunchtime. She confronted another inmate who had been charged with alleged child sex offenses. Quote, "I'm still hungry. Who should I ask for more food?" she asked the inmate, who then said, "I don't know. Haven't you got enough?" At this time, by the way, Jessica had 3 meals in her hand when she asked this question. Jessica then exploded in a fit of rage and grabbed the inmate's hair. The woman was seated, and Jessica yanked her hair so hard that the woman's head, quote, vaulted backwards. When officers ran towards them, Jessica ran back to her cell. The inmate was taken to the medical ward where they saw that she had a bald patch in her scalp. Police questioned Jessica, who said that the inmate had teased her about her eating disorder, bulimia, and was planning to attack her with other inmates. So she said she got her first. This was her plan so that the guards would then move her to another wing. She also said that she was constantly told to watch her back by other inmates and complained that life in prison was, quote, hard and that guards, quote, can't protect you. Quote, "Sometimes, and I hate to say it, in this courtroom, but other prisoners have been murdered by other prisoners in jail. That's how it is in jail." End quote. Yep, basically sounds like prison to me. Then she started attacking guards. In August 2021, the guards were leaving her cell and Jessica unexpectedly bolted towards the closing doors and slipped through the opening. They told her to get back in your cell, and she moved as if she was obeying their orders, but when one of the guards turned her head to speak to another inmate, Jessica grabbed a fistful of the guard's hair and ripped it from her scalp. She was then restrained by 3 guards. The guard was left with a long strip of a bald patch on her scalp. When they asked Jessica why she did that, she said she thought she'd only pulled out just a few strands. She also said, "I don't like her. I just wanted to give her a little bit of the taste of her own medicine for the shit they've been doing to me since I've been here." Almost 2 months later, she attacked another guard in the yard in a similar way. While guards were taking her back to her cell, she grabbed a handful of one of the guard's hair and yanked it. The guard screamed and Jessica held on. She didn't let go until more guards came in and restrained her. This guard also had a chunk of hair lost. She was left with 2 bald patches in her scalp. Quote, "The consequences of this assault have had lasting and profound effects on my life. I am filled with sadness and anger that this assault occurred. I truly believe the price I paid for this incident was the deterioration of my mental health." End quote. She also warned that Jessica clearly has a, quote, "noticeable pattern of behavior in attacking guards and advocated for better protection for officers." Nathan Steele, Jessica's lawyer in this particular assault case, said that these attacks are, quote, "fairly spontaneous," but that, quote, "she was aware of the wrongfulness of her actions on both occasions." Then, prosecution Fiona Jowett argued that Jessica had shown, quote, "little to no remorse for the attacks on the 2 guards." Quote, "The history of her assaults, hair pulling and obviously worse, should cause the court some concern." End quote. In the meantime, Jessica was moved to a different correctional facility to serve out the rest of her sentence. And now, that is the case of Jessica Camilleri. Whew, that was the case. Now, let me say some afterthoughts, even though this case was already long. Okay, my thing is, why was she put into prison instead of a mental health ward? I mean, I guess the wing she's on is a mental health wing, but I just think that she'll never get any help in there. Second, she gets triggered by women, so you surround her with women? I mean, but then again, she gets obsessed with men, so I guess there's no real good place for her to, unless you're just going to keep her in solitary confinement, which will then eventually make her even more mentally unstable. I mean, I guess there's no real answer for this, is there? So I wanted to read to you some comments that I found across the web, mainly Reddit, that was about this case. So Recklethon33 said, quote, "Not giving this woman an excuse, but her face has a lot of signs of fetal alcohol syndrome. I'm reading that she had a litany of medical disorders that she refused to get help for at 27, so yeah, she should be remanded to a facility until she can be deemed safe to the public under a lifetime of supervision. The reason I say this is because oftentimes people will see the horrific aftermath of a mental illness and make a snap judgment. However, there is a fair chance that this person can be rehabilitated if given proper treatment for her issues. Do not get me wrong, criminals, psychopaths, and sociopaths cannot be cured with our current medical knowledge and must be remanded to facilities for the safety of the general public. People suffering from delusions and untreated mental health issues should not be cast into asylums for the criminally insane for the rest of their lives. Those places are far worse than prisons." End quote. That's basically what I was saying. So, but there's no real answer of where to put them. Not into asylums, not into prisons. Where? No Biscotti 7071 said, quote, "I mean, I am not a psychiatrist and never met Miss Camilleri, although we live in the same suburb, but clearly she has some sort of mental health issues. Mental health care in Australia is rather poor. I worked in a hospital where I used to receive large numbers of mentally ill patients, and frankly, they used to receive shaming than care. Everyone used to roll their eyes and say another crazy." End quote. I'm sorry, I was trying to make sense of some of that statement because just some words were missing. So Dr. Tacos MD said, quote, "This likely wasn't something that just happened overnight. This was probably the result of some severe chemical imbalance as well as long-term conflict. While possible she just randomly snapped one day, that much of a change out of the blue is super rare. Either way, very sad end to something that could have probably been prevented with some treatment and counseling." End quote. To which Lone Wolf 5333 replied, quote, "The problem is that a lot of people display violent dysfunctional tendencies, so the issue is determining how much they will escalate. I doubt there was any type of diagnosis or behavior prior that indicated she was capable of such a terrible act." End quote. So we heard some of the comments out there. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think about this case? Do you think Jessica should be in prison? Now, if not, where do you think she should be? I'd love to hear from you, and you have 3 ways of sharing your thoughts with me. Number 1, you can tell me in the comments below. Number 2, you can join the Lamb Facebook group and let me know over there and have a conversation with the other lambs. The link is in the show notes below. And number 3, you can join our exclusive Lamb community here at patreon.com/love and murder. Speaking of which, if you join Patreon at only a $3 a month donation, you get this episode completely commercial free. You also get no intro and the extras that we have with this case, which is some videos. There are a plethora of pictures and so much more. You not only get that, but you also get back bonuses. So the bonus we had last week and all the bonuses since we started Love and Murder. So you'll get some with Shar in it, some with Rick in it. And then eventually it is just me. It is just me. So now Patreon has set it up where you could actually get this on Spotify. So if you just search Love and Murder Premium Feed on Spotify or just click in the show notes below, you can get Love and Murder's bonuses on Spotify as well. Now, although I tell you $3 a month donation, the best tier is the $5 a month and above, because not only do you get these things, but you get so many bonuses, bonus episodes, and access to everything that I post throughout the web. You get it all here in this one little community, patreon.com/love and murder. Come on over. I'd love to have you. And a free and easy way to help me out is by simply sharing this episode. Share with your sister, share with your mom, share with your brother, share with your sister, share with your dog, share with your cat. Share, 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 share. And as always, I end each episode by reminding you that it's, say it with me now, all love and no murder, y'all. Bye. Hey, quick thing. Before you go, don't forget to give me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on. So thank you in advance for that. Hey, AI Jane, what do we have up for next week? A case about a guy who beat his girlfriend's child to death? Oh my God, can we ever have like a case about butterflies and unicorns or something? Oh, I tell you.